Hello my dear student. Today I am going to start new topic, that is movement along the demand curve or change in quantity demanded. So here you have to understand the meaning of movement along the demand curve or change in quantity demanded. So when quantity demanded of a commodity increases or decreases due to a rise or fall in the price of a commodity, and the other factors or the other determinants like income of the consumer, taste and preference, credit facilities, government policies, etc. remaining constant is known as change in quantity demanded or movement along the demand curve. That is, when price of commodity increases, quantity demand will decrease, and when price will decrease, quantity demand will increase. But other factor remaining constant. So as I have already defined that what are the factors that is going to remain constant while defining the change in quantity demand or movement along the demand curve. So number one, it will be income of the consumer. Number two, taste and preferences, credit facilities, etc. This factor will remain constant. Okay, now this movement along the demand curve or change in quantity demand can be also represented with the help of diagram, and the derivation of the demand curve we have already done in the previous class. So we know that demand curve is downward sloping. So let's consider two axes, that is x-axis and y-axis. Now this is your origin. In x-axis we are going to measure the quantity demand, and in y-axis we are going to measure the price. Now we know the shape of the demand curve is downward sloping. So let's DD is your demand curve, and we will consider one price, that is, let's consider P as the initial price. Now this initial price is P and the initial quantity is suppose Q. So here OP is the initial price and the OQ is the initial quantity. Now if the price of a commodity increases from OP to suppose OP1, that is rise in price, now what will happen in the case of change in quantity demand? So we can see that due to rise in price from OP to OP1, there will be decrease in quantity demand from OQ to OQ1. So here the quantity demand of commodity will decrease due to rise in price of a commodity. Similarly, we can show that if the price of a commodity decreases, then the quantity demand will increase. Let's consider another price P2. So at price P2, the quantity demand will be Q2. So here, due to fall in price from OP to OP2, the quantity demand of commodity is increasing from OQ to OQ2. So the movement from this point, let's consider this point A, this one as B, and this one A, C. So movement from point A to point B or point C, that movement of change in demand is known as movement along the demand curve or change in quantity demanded. So here it takes place due to either a rise in price or fall in price. Okay, next, this change in quantity demand can be divided into two parts, or it can be classified in two parts. Number one, extension or expansion of demand, and the next one we have contraction of demand. Now you have to understand the definition of extension of demand or contraction of demand. So extension of demand means when the quantity demanded of a commodity increases due to fall in price of a commodity and the other factors remaining constant, then that concept is known as extension of demand or expansion of demand. Okay, next we have contraction of demand. So when quantity demanded of a commodity decreases, due to a rise in the price of a commodity and the other factors or the other determinants remaining constant is known as contraction of demand. So here, when price of a commodity increases, the quantity demand will decrease. Other factors remaining constant, so that concept is known as contraction of demand. So this explanation of extension of demand and contraction of demand can be also explained with the help of a diagram. Now I am going to explain the extension of demand with the help of a diagram. Similarly, we will draw x-axis and y-axis. So here we will measure the quantity and in the y-axis we will measure the price. This is our origin, and we know that the shape of the demand curve is downward sloping. Similarly, we will consider the initial price P. So at price P, suppose quantity demand of a commodity is Q. Now, if price of a commodity decreases, from P to suppose P1, so this downward arrow shows the decrease in price of a commodity. So when price of a commodity decreases, we can see that the quantity demand of a commodity will increase from Q to Q1. So there will be the rightward movement in the quantity axis. That is, the quantity demand will increase from OQ to OQ1. So here, if you see the demand curve, there will be the downward movement on the demand curve. So this indicates the extension of demand. Okay, now next we have contraction of demand. So when price of a commodity increases, the quantity demand will decrease and the other things remaining constant. So that concept is known as contraction of demand. Now I am going to explain that contraction of demand with the help of diagram. Let's consider OP is the initial price and OQ is the initial quantity. Now if the price of a commodity increases from P to P1, this upward arrow shows increase in the price. Now when price of a commodity increases, we can see that the quantity demand of a commodity is decreasing from OQ to OQ1. So here the movement on the demand curve takes place in the upward direction. So this concept is known as contraction of demand.